Republican National Committee backtracking on a resolution declaring Donald Trump as the party's, quote, presumptive nominee following his back-to-back wins in Iowa and New Hampshire. Nikki Haley joining us in her first interview since the New Hampshire primary, and I'm sure it is good to be home and in your own bed indeed. Want to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, Ronna McDaniel, the head of the Republican National Committee, on Tuesday night, she said that she thinks you should get out of the race. Have you spoken to her?
I let her know how disappointed I was. Let's look at the last 48 hours, Dana. First of all, you had election night. Trump gets on stage. He throws an absolute temper tantrum talking about revenge, but he says nothing about the American people, nothing about what he's going to do about the wasteful spending that he encouraged and allowed the Republicans and Democrats to do in his term. He said nothing about how he's going to secure the border and what he's going to do different that he didn't do when he was president before. He said nothing about how he's going to prevent war. Then he goes and says that he's going to ban anyone from MAGA that donates to me. Think about that. That's a president who's supposed to serve every person in America, and you're deciding that you're going to have a club and actually ban people from being in and out of your club. And then he goes and encourages the members of the RNC and tries to push them into saying that he's the nominee in the race. They got so much pushback that he had to backtrack from it. He's
sure
totally
that he
unhinged. But at the end of the day, our focus is still on the American people.
Are you sure that it was he that was asking for that resolution? He says in the Truth Social post, thank you to the RNC for the respect and devotion you've shown me, but he has no interest in doing that.
Well, it was his people that pushed it forward. I know how much he's pushed on Ronna. Ronna has made that very clear that he was pushing her to stop debates all this time. And so he pushes them to do things. And I think they got some major blowback. And that's why he had to walk it back. Look, you can't bully your way through this process. He has 32 electoral delegates. I have 17. You have to have 1,215. There's a long way to go in this race, and we're prepared to do that. We have a country to save, and I think we've got a lot of solutions, and we don't need to talk about how you push through an election. We need to talk about what you're going to do for the American people, because right now the country's in disarray, the world is on fire, and we can't handle 4 more years of this chaos.
You went on to say there a moment ago that he was totally unhinged. I think that was the quote you gave. Coming out of New Hampshire, he won 74% of Republicans. To date, 109 counties have voted, and you've won 2, and one of those by a single vote. When do you start winning Republicans?
Well, first of all, I will win Republicans, but guess who else I win? I win moderates and I win independents, which he does not. That is why he lost in 2018. That's why he lost in 2020. That's why he lost in 2022. And that's why in every poll you see, he loses to Joe Biden and I win. This is the issue of you can't win a presidential election without moderates and independents. I can get the support of Republicans, moderates, and independents. I will do that. The thing is, you look at the fact I didn't get 0 delegates. I've got 17 delegates. We moved 25 points in New Hampshire in the last 3 weeks of that race. We're going to continue to move in South Carolina. And so, look, we moved from 2% to 20% in Iowa. We moved up 25% in New Hampshire. We're going to do even better than that in South Carolina.
Just with the schedule coming up, you're not really competing in Nevada, and they got Michigan, Idaho, and North Dakota. There are 16 states that vote on March 5th. That's Super Tuesday. Which of those 16 will you win?
We're going to try and push for all of them. We're going to do everything and anything we can. But right now, our focus is on South Carolina. We've always taken it one state at a time. We're going to keep doing that. But look, Americans are coming on board with us. Everything that he does to talk about himself makes everybody realize we've got to be talking about America. We've got kids who only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. We've got a border that's absolutely out of control. We've got wars around the world, and we've got to prevent our men and women that are in harm's way from getting hurt. There's some serious issues. The last thing we need to talk about is how disgruntled he is or how vengeful he is. We've got to start talking about solutions and how we're going to get America back on track.
Okay, I didn't hear a specific state mentioned, but we'll leave that to the side now. Continue, Dave.
Well, I think one of the things that I was pointing out...
you can say that all you want, Bill, but I'll say this. Right now, we're focused on South Carolina. You can look at the states ahead of us. South Carolina is the one we're focused on. We're going to be stronger in South Carolina than we were in New Hampshire. We've been moving across that. We're gaining momentum as we do it. And so, y'all can look forward. I'm looking at the state at hand. So that's the one that I think
that helps
matters
a
right now.
campaign is if you are well funded. I know that you've pointed out that you've saved your pennies. that you were judicious that's the accountant in you, and I know that's one of your selling points. But GOP mega donor Andy Sabin, he thought this after Tuesday night.
You have to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. It's time for Nikki Haley to walk away. I will be the first person to write her a check for president in 2028. There's absolutely no upside to her going to South Carolina, and there's a tremendous downside.
Your reaction to him?
I don't listen to donors, Dana. I never have. I listen to the American people, and I know that we have a country to save. I don't want my kids to live like this. And so, look, I care more about the average American person who's feeling this in their wallet, who's seeing it with their kids' education, and who's seeing the chaos at the border. And what I'll tell you is we've had almost 200,000 donors from all 50 states donate into our campaign. 95% of those are less than $200. That's what we want. Those are the people I'm fighting for. I've never fought for the political elite. I've never fought for the donor class. I've always fought for the average working person, because at the end of the day, that's what I relate to. That's what I think most Americans are. And that's what we have to do to get our country back on track. And so, I appreciate whatever he has to say in his thoughts, but I don't listen to him or any other donors when it comes to what I need to do to save America. You
need the money to keep the campaign going. Everybody knows that. I think on Tuesday night, a lot of people...
And I've got the money to keep the campaign going, too. And that's the thing, that we've saved it. And you look at the fact that just yesterday, since Trump said he was going to ban people who supported me and not MAGA, we raised $1.6 million since he said that. I mean, you look at, we raised $1 million from the time of the speech to the next morning. We're going to keep raising money because people like what we have to say. Republicans, moderates, independents, and even Reagan Democrats like what we have to say. They don't want to keep going into these extremes. They don't want to sit there and talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump and their issues. They want to talk about the American people and the issues that American people face. That's what I'm talking about, is the solutions for them. We're going to fight for them, and we're going to win for them.
Just want to squeeze this in. A lot of people thought you were going to drop out on Tuesday night. A lot. I know we can debate how many that is. But listening to you now, win or lose in South Carolina or Super Tuesday or Super Tuesday 2, do you see you staying in this campaign until the convention in Milwaukee in mid-July?
I have been consistent from the beginning, Bill. You can ask me as many times as you want. I wanted to be strong in Iowa. We did that. I wanted to be even stronger in New Hampshire. We did that. I want to be even stronger in South Carolina. We're going to do that. And then we're going to go on to Super Tuesday. This is about continuing to build. Only 2 states have voted. We have 48 states left. You can't go and discount all of those voters who want to vote in this election. We're going to keep going as long as we keep growing, and I think that's what the American people want.
Okay. Thank you for your time today.
Great
really
to have
appreciate you coming on. We'll speak down the road. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.